In 1837, a yogi named Haridas was bricked inside an underground chamber in front of a Maharaja, his court, and a team of skeptical British army surgeons, and nobody let him out for 70 days. When they unsealed the tomb, his heart had stopped, his lungs were still, and his skin was cold as stone, yet within minutes he opened his eyes and asked for warm milk. The British officers filed official reports. The Maharaja staked his reputation on what he witnessed, and the world has never agreed on what actually happened inside that tomb. To understand how this was even attempted, you have to understand who Haridas was and what tradition he came from, because this was not his first time doing something like this. Haridas was a practitioner of a breathing discipline so extreme that modern physiologists still debate whether the human body can actually do what he reportedly did. His practice was called khechari mudra, a yogic technique that reportedly allowed a trained practitioner to slow the body to a near-death state and endure it consciously for days or longer. Before the 1837 burial, there had been at least one prior documented test, watched by different witnesses, where Haridas had been sealed in a locked box and carried away, only to be found alive when it was opened. What made 1837 different was who was watching. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the most powerful ruler in Punjab, had specifically invited British military surgeons to be present so that European science could not dismiss it. The lead British surgeon, Claude Wade, was not a credulous man. He was a political agent and officer who had seen enough of India to be skeptical of performance mysticism, and he came prepared to catch a fraud. Before the sealing, the surgeons examined Haridas thoroughly. They checked his pulse, his breathing, the temperature of his skin, and found every vital sign normal and strong. Then, in front of all of them, Haridas performed his preparation ritual. He sealed his own nostrils with beeswax, folded his tongue back against his throat in a posture that physically closes the airway, and entered a state that looked, to every observer present, like death. They placed him in a linen bag, sealed it, lowered it into the underground chamber, bricked over the entrance, and posted guards outside day and night for the duration of the experiment. The Maharaja's seal was pressed into wax on the brick wall, and Wade recorded the exact time. They would not open it for 10 weeks. What happened over those next 70 days inside the chamber, nobody can say with complete certainty, but what the observers reported when they periodically checked the exterior was deeply strange. The grain that had been scattered around the tomb to detect footprints remained untouched throughout, meaning no secret exit, no hidden tunnel, no midnight food delivery that skeptics would later suggest. When the 40th day came, the Maharaja could not resist. He ordered a partial inspection, and the surgeons opened the outer seal early and found the linen bag exactly as it had been placed. No movement, no sign of disturbance. Wade himself examined the bag. When he pressed lightly on the linen, he reported the body inside was rigid, cold, and showed absolutely no breath and no pulse. They resealed the tomb, replaced the Maharaja's wax stamp, and waited out the remaining 30 days, this time without opening it again. On the morning of day 70, a crowd had assembled, courtiers, soldiers, servants, and the full British medical party, all watching as the bricks were broken away one by one. When the linen bag was brought out and unwrapped, what the surgeons found was, by their own written accounts, deeply alarming. The body was cold, rigid, and completely without vital signs. One of the surgeons began massaging the body, applying warm water to the limbs, gently forcing air past the sealed nostrils, and over the course of perhaps 20 minutes, something began to change. A pulse returned first, faint and stuttering, then shallow breathing. Then color came back to the lips and fingertips, and then Haridas opened his eyes. He reportedly recognized the Maharaja, spoke clearly, and within the hour was sitting upright drinking warm milk, apparently unconcerned by the fact that he had just been legally dead for the better part of 2.5 months. Wade's official report, submitted to the British authorities, stated plainly that no fraud or deception had been detected at any point during the 70 days, and that the observations defied any explanation he could offer. The scientific debate that followed was ferocious and has never truly ended. Was Haridas in a genuine suspended metabolic state, or was there some form of deception that simply went undetected? Modern physiologists point out that the khechari mudra technique does demonstrably slow metabolism, lower heart rate, and reduce oxygen demand to a fraction of normal. The question is whether it can go far enough to sustain life across 70 days without food or water. Some researchers have proposed that the tongue lock technique can seal the palate in a way that triggers a kind of hibernation response in the brainstem, a mechanism that exists in animals but has never been formally confirmed in humans. What makes this story resistant to easy dismissal is the quality of the witnesses. These were not credulous pilgrims, but trained European military surgeons whose professional reputations depended on accuracy, and they reported what they saw anyway. Haridas reportedly performed similar demonstrations on multiple subsequent occasions. The 1837 burial was not a one-time event, but part of a documented pattern across different locations and audiences. He lived well past the events of 1837, continued teaching, and by some accounts repeated the burial practice in old age, as though 70 days underground were, to him, simply part of an ordinary discipline. The story of Haridas sits in one of the most uncomfortable places in human knowledge. It is too well documented to ignore and too extreme to explain, and it suggests that the limits of human physiology may be far stranger than any laboratory has yet confirmed. Whatever Haridas actually did inside that chamber, he forced British military surgeons to write reports they could not explain, and he has remained unexplained ever since, which may itself be the point. Haridas went underground for 70 days and came out breathing, while trained surgeons stood there with no explanation. Subscribe to History Retold for the cases history class decided were too strange to teach.